Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I think we'll plan to get started. I know there are a few more people will be coming in, but we want to try to keep it close to the schedule. So first of all, again, good afternoon and welcome. I have to look at this and read it. I am Mike Friedlander. I knew that. I didn't have to read that. My name is Mike Friedlander, and I have the privilege of serving as Virginia Tech's Vice President for Health Sciences and Technology, and as Director of the Fralin Biomedical Research Institute at Virginia Tech Carilion, and also as Senior Dean for Research at the Virginia Tech Carilion School of Medicine. Thanks to all of you who have joined us here today on this beautiful spring day in Roanoke at the Virginia Tech Carilion Health Science and Technology campus, and thanks to those of you who are joining us remotely. Today's program has been several years in the making, delayed at least twice that I can remember by the pandemic, but an intrepid group kept hard at work through many, many Zoom meetings that you are all quite familiar with to bring this program to fruition. And we are here today, thank goodness, and very excited about it. This afternoon, we're going to hear from one of the most trusted voices in the nation's biomedical and health research enterprise, Research America. They very recently carried out a survey and analysis in the Commonwealth of opinions, perspectives, and familiarity with the state's medical research enterprise. It is important for all of us who carry out research to be good stewards of public resources in the service of the public good. That importance is particularly germane in medical research, where the public's health is dependent on the integrity and the success of the enterprise. Thus, it is essential that we periodically take stock of the public's awareness, opinions, and concerns. The last 2 years have brought this into particularly sharp focus. And while it's not written here, I just want to add, when I was talking to Mary Woolley a couple of years ago about this, I was surprised, having come to Virginia myself 12 years ago, that this sort of thing hadn't been done in quite a while. I forget how many years, but it's been a long time since this has been done in Virginia. So we're very excited to see this is finally happening. So in today's program, we will hear about the results of Research America's survey, followed by comments and discussion by leaders from healthcare, universities, and industry, in what promises to provide new insights into where we are, where we're going, and how we can get there. In addition to discussing the impact of the public support for research to improve health and health care, the participants will also consider the economic impact of the biomedical research enterprise that is so important to so many of us for our region and the entire Commonwealth. So let's get started. It is now my pleasure to welcome my boss and colleague, Tim Sands, President of Virginia Tech, to the stage. Tim, welcome.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks for all of you for being here today, or those who are virtual, welcome. I think you'll enjoy this detailed look at the health and medical research climate in the Commonwealth today. I know we are joined by several elected leaders and administrative leaders from the city of Roanoke and Roanoke County who have shared our vision and have been wonderful advocates for this growing enterprise. Thank you for being here and for your ongoing support. I would also like to acknowledge and thank the representatives for Senators Mark Warner and Tim Kaine and Congressman Morgan Griffith and Ben Klein, who are here with us today. As we'll hear throughout the program, we cannot understate the value of federally sponsored biomedical and health sciences research. Our guest speaker today, Mary Woolley of Research America, is going to talk to us about the opinions and concerns that Virginia residents have regarding health and biomedical research in the Commonwealth. Virginia Tech partnered with Research America and Zogby Analytics to survey 1,000 Virginia residents who mirror the state's demographics. These results indicate that we have good reason for optimism. Virginia residents are far ahead of the national average in their belief that the U.S. must maintain its role as a leader globally in medical research. 76% of our residents in the Commonwealth believe it is important to maintain that leadership role, compared with a national average of 55%. Half of the residents in the Commonwealth believe research is the solution to rising healthcare costs. That aligns well with our mission at Virginia Tech. We have historically been a research leader in the Commonwealth, known for our work in engineering and the life sciences. We are now making a mark in biomedical research, partnering with Carilion Clinic, the city of Roanoke, and the Commonwealth nearly 15 years ago to create the Fralin Biomedical Research Institute at VTC and the Virginia Tech Carilion School of Medicine. During that short period of time, Virginia Tech's profile has grown to the point that we are now the third most recognized biomedical research university in Virginia. The top two have had a 100-year head start, but we're on a move to catch up fast. It's now my pleasure to introduce the president of Research America, who will share survey results. And let me say a little bit about Mary. Mary Woolley has been an advocate for science and research for more than 3 decades. She's a member of the National Academy of Medicine and a fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. She previously served on the National Academy of Science Board of Life Sciences and currently serves on its board for higher education and workforce. And she has more publications and awards than we have time to list this afternoon, but you can look them up. Please welcome Mary Woolley.
Thank you so much, Tim, for that lovely introduction. And it is indeed a pleasure to be here at an event that we started talking about those many years ago, Mike. So I'm delighted, and I'm going to go right into delivering some highlights from our survey. So this survey we could only do with the help and support of Virginia Tech and our friends and your team. And let me thank you, Mike and Tim and Nancy, for the people that you put to the task working with us and the Research America team. It's been a terrific partnership, and we appreciate your partnership also in the Research America Alliance. We are an alliance, a nonprofit alliance based in Washington with a primary focus on decision makers in Washington, but also historically we've had done quite a lot of work with our partners around the country, our members, to find out the attitudes, keep a finger on the pulse of the attitudes of people across the country. But it has been over 2 decades since we did a similar kind of survey in Virginia. This is why we believe it's important to commission public opinion surveys. We don't conduct them, we commission them as part of our work. Abraham Lincoln, I think, said it best. If you don't have public sentiment behind you, if you don't know what it is, you have really no chance of succeeding. And we want research for health to succeed, not fail. And so does the American public, very much, including the citizens of Virginia. The methodology for this survey is almost exactly the same as surveys you read about and hear about in the media every day. Whether commissioned by elected officials or by those who want to be elected officials, or by the media itself or other groups, uses the same kind of methodology. It's a snapshot in time. Keep that in mind because times change, attitudes change. I'm going to tell you when it's applicable about demographic differences throughout this highlights presentation. But the bottom line is there are very few demographic differences. People generally have the same support or question marks in their heads across the state, and for that matter, across the country. Sorry, it's Commonwealth, not a state, I know that. So we're going to start, as we always start these commission surveys, by asking people how they would rate leadership of the Commonwealth in this case on these areas, all of them important to the economic prosperity and jobs and income in the state, and many of them important to health, but all to quality of life, arguably. So what you see here, and by the way, you should always combine, and looking at public opinion surveys, always combine the positives in your head, do the math a little bit or be guided by the colors. Combine the positives, combine the negatives. Look at it that way. The reason to do that, it's been well established by pollsters that there are many people who never say they will never give a grade of excellent or 5 if 5 is tops, and they will never give a total negative or a 0. They like to come down more in the moderate middle, if you will. So please remember, snapshot in time. This is what people are saying, and keep these, the ranking, the numbers kind of loosely in mind as we go to what Virginians want. What do Virginians want? They want the Commonwealth to be a leader, basically, in all these endeavors. And the difference between what they perceive is currently the case and what it would take to get to leadership in terms of public support is, I think, a mandate. It's a mandate for public officials to take action. It's a mandate for citizens to demand more, to say, we want to be a leader and we will support getting there. Let me go back to that for a minute, with education number one. I can tell you this is true across the country in every state. Education comes out number one. And it makes sense to think about it as it's the driver, really, it's the future for success in every one of these other enterprises as well. They go together. And it's about keeping smart young people right here in the Commonwealth, not letting them get away. When we take deeper dives into tell us more respondents. Now, it's also the case that Virginians feel that the value they receive for their federal dollars, their tax dollars, it ranks high, particularly for medical and health research. It's at the top here in value received. For all the criticism we all hear of the federal government and how our tax dollars are spent, actually people see very strong value, and with very few saying no value. Now here we see a comparison slide. I'm not going to show you a lot of that, but we do pay attention to how a given Commonwealth or state's responses to survey questions measure up to other states. So we chose a nearby state, Ohio, a few years ago now, and the pandemic's in between, of course. But you can see that Virginians are very highly, just, mandate level of 40% plus 44% of saying that spending money on health or medical research is important to the economy. It's good jobs, as well as finding the solutions to what ails us. Now, that said, only half of the respondents were aware that federally funded health research is conducted in Virginia. A lot of people just don't know. They're not sure. And this is not intended to be a trick question for people, but there is not as much awareness as you might suppose working here in and around medical research, that everybody knows that their tax dollars are helping support it. People don't know that. It's true all across the country. And it's also a fact that only half, and the main takeaway here is only half of the population of those surveyed can name a place where research is conducted in Virginia, no matter who's sponsoring it, only half. That means it's invisible to the other half of folks. And that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity. You can't talk about it enough. People love it. You saw that from the first slides, but they're not hearing about it and don't realize that it's happening here. And President Sands already commented that Virginia Tech is number 3 here, and the number 1 and 2 did have a head start for sure. But the main takeaway here, remember this, half of the people in the Commonwealth can't name a place where research is conducted. Think of it as an opportunity and a reason to over and over again identify the reality. Now, let's turn to what people are worried about. Now, in our commissioned surveys, we've been asking this question for decades. So if you think back, for a person my age, if you think back 3 decades ago and would speculate on what would people say was the #1 health issue of concern to them. 3 decades ago, it was HIV/AIDS. And it stayed up there in the top 1, 2, 3 for almost a decade. But now you see, although it's still on the list, and it's still a dreadful disease. What we want to do is eliminate it, like we want to eliminate diabetes, and researchers are working on those and all of these. But it's not that top of mind lead issues. You can see what is cost of healthcare, mental health, which moved up nationally as well as here in Virginia just last year from about fourth place or so, fourth rank to second, number 2. And I think that fits well with all of our experience, some of which might be very close to home in our own families, of the costly toll that mental disorders are taking. And if you combine that with substance abuse, opioid abuse, and drug abuse, it's astronomical. It goes to the number 1 position. So the reality there is talking, or the message I would say is that when you're talking about the importance of medical and health research here in the Commonwealth or nationally, finding solutions to mental health issues is a good place to start the conversation. Now, research takes money. And it also costs, healthcare costs money. So the question here is, would you say medical research is part of the problem or part of the solution? And a good percentage of people really aren't sure. And then you see 50%, however, see it as part of the solution. I certainly do. And if you've studied how research contributes to controlling healthcare costs, and think about prevention in particular, it's a slam dunk. People who don't get sick don't cost us or themselves a costly toll. Now, there's very little difference among people who identify with one party or another, political ideology. And I point that out here. It's true throughout that there's very little difference in these findings, with a few exceptions, and we'll get to those. Now we see another way of talking about costs. US spends about 6 cents of every health dollar on research. How does this sound to people? Is that about right? Is it not enough? Well, the majority, just over a majority, or at a majority, 50% say in Virginia, say that's not enough. And you can see comparisons to earlier this year, January, actually, to a national survey, which was higher. But this number moves around, as we've seen over the years. But the percentage saying too much is trivial, single digits, with a lot of people not being sure, of course. Now, once you start identifying a specific kind of medical research to solve a particular problem, the percentages always go up. So here we see overall that 60%, 6 in 10, say the expenditures we make for mental health research simply haven't been adequate. And there is a significant difference with those identifying as Democrats saying not adequate. That kind of falls in line in general with Democrats being generally more willing to spend public dollars. Now, Virginians also are, and you probably are living this and know about it, that addiction to opioids, they say that addiction to opioids is problematic, number one, and there's differences here. Some people say, some percentage says things have gotten better, but many say it has not. And that's regional to a certain extent, although our data can't actually dig deeply into that. But we know this is a major problem, and research to find solutions is essential. Childhood disease, off the charts here in terms of support. This is our future, and everybody knows it. We've got to do more to eliminate childhood disease. And you see, this is truly mandate level. So all you are doing now, just keep doing it and talk about it. Connect to people who want you to succeed. Now I see 3/4 of Virginians agreeing that veterinary science is important to understanding human health, not only to helping animals, although that is incredibly important as well. And you think about all the connections to the very high priority people put on agriculture as an economic driver, an important point of pride, and a high value in Virginia. 75% agree that Virginia should invest in improving the health research infrastructure, as we can see right here on this campus and in the city of Roanoke. It's being built to expand medical care and medical and health research and all that goes with it. And that sounds great to Virginians. 70%, similar high percentage, support investing in medical and health startups. Again, the connection to economic growth and good jobs that stay in Virginia, and that means smart young people stay in Virginia or come to Virginia, all very positive, very positive. And there's a little bit of difference among political ideology, but it's all quite high, quite strong. Now, these are three statements. We asked people to express whether they agree, disagree, or strongly disagree with the following statements. They all have to do with the benefits of university research. And you can see how strong this is, very strong. Although high in other parts of the country, this is really at the tops. You know, people do value research at universities, not only education, but they value that too very highly. 70% again say that the Commonwealth tax dollars should support scientific research at public universities. Sometimes we hear that people don't think that's a good idea. They want only, they of course want education to be provided, not so sure about research. I've never seen any public opinion survey in any state that says that research is not valued at universities. Never seen it. And I've looked at these results for 3 decades. So you shouldn't hesitate to brag about it even, I'd say. Now, support is mixed on just the straight tax increase question. When it's all of a sudden, oops, you're talking about me paying $1 more a week in taxes. Maybe I'm not so sure. That's why we asked the question. We want to see what's the message that's a little bit too far for people, if you will, even though they conceptually agree that more tax support should go toward education and research and a number of other things. There is party difference here. But this is not terrible news. I think the way one would drive this percentage, the positive percentages higher, is to talk about a specific kind of research, as we saw with childhood diseases, as we saw with veterinary science. Once you make it specific, people are more willing to pay for it. Now, the Virginians agree that STEM education is important to the economy, but there's a puzzling demographic issue here. The very people who you would think would most want to be positive about education are those in the 18 to 29 age group. And we don't fully understand this. We've seen it nationally as well, suddenly, just in the last couple of years. A significant difference. Now, remember, you add 54 and 34, you get 88, and then 77% is a significantly lower number. It's not 30%, you know, this is not a burning platform, but it's of concern, and it comes through on some other questions as well, like this one. Do you agree or disagree that the General Assembly should assign a higher priority to improving education in the STEM fields? Again, puzzling that 18 to 29-year-olds are less likely to agree, right? If you have thoughts about that, we want to hear it, because we want to understand this and get involved in advocacy to turn that around if possible. Now, many scientists who conduct basic research have the impression, we hear it all the time, that they think, the scientists think, that the public doesn't support basic research. Now, sometimes people say the public doesn't understand it, and that's likely true. But the idea that they don't support it has never shown up in public opinion surveys. And in fact, this question, word for word, has been asked since the mid-1980s by the National Science Board. And the responses come out this way over year in and year out. The public supports basic research. And when we ran focus groups on that some years ago now, the bottom line for why would people say this? The answer was because you got to do that first before you can have anything to apply just that simple. And it's also true then, logically, and it is, that Virginians approve of federal funding for basic research at universities. Those go together. And then this is the final data slide I'll show. As we heard from Tim earlier, Virginians much more likely than a national respondent pool just 3 months ago Virginians much more likely to say that it's important that the US maintain its role as a world leader in medical research. And I would say that it's important to Virginians that they do their part in that leadership. The theme of this survey to me is leadership. Virginians want leadership in the very fields that you are engaged in. And they want the General Assembly and other players, for that matter, other actors, to support it. That's a very strong message. It's stronger than we've seen in many places. I think it should be energizing and inspiring to all of you as you continue your great work. And do remember what people are most concerned about. Don't fail to talk about how your work is helping find answers to the very things that are top of mind for them. Thank you so much. Now it's, well, I want to say thank you again, Mike, Tim, Nancy, and I want to introduce Nancy. Nancy Howell Agee is the president and CEO of the Carilion Clinic. Nancy, over to you.
Thank you, Mary. It really is a pleasure to be here. Well, if the railroad was our past, research is undoubtedly our future. We've seen a meteoric increase in biomedical research and development in our region in the past decade. Today, research spending in Roanoke is more than that of all 15 of our peer cities combined. Much of that research is happening right here on this campus. Our research portfolio at Carilion has expanded dramatically at the same time. Today, we have more than 130 active clinical trials. We had just 23 2 years ago. Our physicians are leading national trials in heart, psychiatry, behavioral health, neurosciences, and surgery, all areas that complement the research taking place right here at Fralin Biomedical Research Institute. Startup companies are emerging, and this groundbreaking research is translated into real-world applications and a thriving innovation corridor springing up all around us. Transformations this dramatic don't just happen. It takes vision and leadership. Today, it is my privilege to introduce one of the most visionary leaders I know, Heywood Fralin. Heywood recognizes, perhaps better than anyone, the transformative power of research. It's no coincidence that the Research Institute bears his family name. It was a generous gift from Heywood and his wife, Cynthia, and the Horace G. Fralin Charitable Trust that compelled Virginia Tech to name its second institute in the Fralin's honor. Heywood Fralin is a lifelong resident of the Roanoke Valley and a past member of the University of Virginia Board of Visitors, having served 2 years as its rector. He came on back west and decided he would also serve on the Board of Visitors of Virginia Tech. He is the past chair of the State Council on Higher Education and currently serves on the Virginia Western Community College Foundation Board of Directors. He serves with me on the Go Virginia Board and the Go Virginia Foundation Board. He is a past chair of the Virginia Business Council and currently a member of the Virginia Business Higher Ed Council. He is a powerful advocate for higher education and economic development and sees our region's future as a hub of cutting-edge biomedical research and innovation. Thank you, Heywood. for your vision, and importantly, your leadership, for your friendship and your mentorship to all of us. It is so vital to this region and this Commonwealth. Today, Heywood will share his thoughts in a fireside chat with Dawn Jeffries. Dawn is the Director of Visual Content Strategy for Virginia Tech and formerly a news anchor in the region. Let's give Heywood a warm welcome.
Which one are you going to take?
Oh, it's so warm and cozy. Thank you for talking with us and having this cozy chat with us with our fireplace burning in the background. I just wanted to start, we just heard Nancy Agee talk about your understanding how transformative research can be. How did you become interested in biomedical research, and more specifically, why did you decide to focus your philanthropy in this area?
Well, first of all, Nancy, thank you for those kind comments. I didn't recognize the person that you described, but nevertheless, thank you very much. Initially, my interest was in economic development. I was pretty concerned about the situation in this region. We had just lost the headquarters of the Norfolk Southern Railroad. We lost headquarters of Dominion Bank. We lost headquarters of Advance Auto. And things were looking pretty bleak because those entities were major funders of the high-paying jobs of the region, and it created a situation that I thought was pretty concerning. And so it seemed to me that there was a significant opportunity with high-quality research in an academic health center that could change all of that. And I'd been watching what was happening in Gainesville, Florida, in Birmingham, Alabama, Pittsburgh, Austin, Texas, Houston, Texas, and a number of other localities throughout the region. And it became pretty clear to me that high-quality education was something that could, and research something that could really, really change the trajectory in the valley. And then as I became more involved in what was happening here, I became excited about the quality of what's happening. The Research Institute is very small by national and world standards, but the quality is as good as anywhere in the world. And in terms of the number of firsts, and by firsts I mean research that involves first discoveries that could have a meaningful impact on the world, it's pretty remarkable for the size of this Research Institute. So I became involved because of that, and fully believe that we are just at the tip of the iceberg. The opportunities are terrific.
You just touched on some of the impact. How do you rate where things stand now, the progress of the Research Institute, given that it's been just over a decade?
Yeah, I think the progress has been pretty phenomenal because, when you think about it, just 11 years ago, it was Mike and his dog. And that was and that was the Research Institute. Since that time, I think I'm correct on these numbers, we have 37 very high-quality research teams in place, over 400 employees, and $180 million of research in place. All of that pretty significant, considering the high quality. And then in addition to that, I think it's important to look at what was formerly the VTC Medical School, now the Virginia Tech, well, it's still Virginia Tech Carilion, but it's an actual school at Virginia Tech. That medical school, initially the decision was made it was going to be embedded with research from day one. The only one in the country. You know, and that was pretty new, pretty remarkable, and was it a good idea? Well, it turns out it was a real good idea because last year for the 49 applications for acceptance at the med school, there were over 6,400 applications. This year for that same 49, there are, at last count, I don't know what the final number was, but there were 6,700. So obviously, some people think, and particularly the applicants think, that this is one of the better medical schools in the country. So that's pretty significant. And then there's a third component. You know, there are a lot of firsts around this operation. And this is the first research institute to place animal research and human research under the same roof. And the results have been pretty remarkable and quite promising. And it's the ability and the willingness to take some risks and do some things that are different have been pretty spectacular here, pretty exciting.
From your perspective, what do you think we need to focus our efforts on? Are there gaps that you see that need to be
Well, there are gaps
filled?
at every academic health center, this one included. There are some things that could be done if we had a larger size that probably can't be done with the size of this research institute. So we certainly need to focus on increasing the size, and we need to do it both through partnerships with other academic health centers and researchers, and we also need to do it with acquiring and significantly increasing the number of researchers here, but all at the same time of maintaining the quality. The quality is everything in the research world. There are other gaps. A number of startup companies are coming out of developing out of the research here. And the funding for these companies and the mentorship is not where it ought to be. And so we really need to focus on ramping up the funding and ramping up the mentorship for these companies, because they are, you know, we're talking about people who are researchers and they're not involved in the business world, so they need mentorship. There are other gaps. We've got a heck of a lot of research that in the pipeline that's going to involve some clinical trials, human clinical trials. So we've got to ramp up the clinical component of the Research Institute to make sure that we're ready to handle these clinical trials that are going to be coming online in the very near future.
You touched on partnerships a minute ago, and I want to ask you more about that. And Dr. Friedlander and the panelists will talk about partnerships a little bit later as well. But how do you see philanthropy and partnerships? How do they work together? How are they hand in hand, basically? Well,
I think partnerships are very important and critical to our academic health centers. It's just part of the world. First of all, when you file an application for funding at NIH, there's priority given to applications that involve partners in research. So that in and of itself is a significant reason to involve partnerships. But it also provides critical mass and some insight from other researchers at other institutions that can be extraordinarily helpful. Partnerships with medical manufacturers are great significance. That's one of the reasons that you see the high quality Siemens and Booker equipment in this research institute. So all of that is really important and bodes well for the future. And then just use Children's National as an example. Everybody loves children. And having that research opportunity with the Children's National, in which the Research Institute occupies a whole floor of that hospital, provides a significant philanthropy opportunity for both institutions.
You mentioned quite a few successes here, but let's talk about success a little more. I'm curious what success ultimately looks like for you in terms of health and research.
Well, in any endeavor, I would say follow the money if you want to measure success. And that's true here. I think it's generally agreed that in all biomedical research institutes, about 85% of the funding comes from the National Institute of Health. And so what is the acceptance rate? The average acceptance rate at the National Institute of Health is somewhere around 10 to 12%. The acceptance rate here at the FBRI from its inception has been 32%. It's sitting at about 36 or 37% now. A pretty remarkable number. But I think there's even another measure that is greater than just the annual acceptance rate, and that is NIH keeps a 5-year rate of calculation of the increase in funding at NIH by each institution over a 5-year period. And the number of, and that's only, it's only current through 2020. The NIH runs about 2 years behind. And some of the most successful research applications have been in the last 2 years. But the number for the FBRI over that last 5-year period that is through to 2020 is 60%, one of the highest numbers on the entire chart, which I think is pretty darn phenomenal. There's one other thing that I think is a great measure of success, and that's the number of firsts, and that's just my definition of what first would involve. I'm talking about research that is a first-time discovery that is of such quality that is likely to change the future of the world. So here, the number of firsts are pretty spectacular for the size, in my opinion. And it has led to some amazing awards. And I'm just going to cite 3 of them, and I apologize to all the others for leaving them out because they all are very remarkable. But Rob Gordy was just named by NIH as a distinguished researcher in his field. Warren Bickel was just listed in the Clairvaux listing of highly cited researchers, which contains listings of all researchers in all fields, and it only includes 1/10 or 1% of the researchers in the world. So that's a pretty significant listing. And then every year at Cold Harbor Springs Lab in New York, there is a gathering of researchers, and one researcher in all fields in the world is invited to give the annual lecture, the Dorcas Cummings Lecture. And Reed Montague in 2018 was invited to give that lecture. So I don't know about all you, but it's pretty amazing to me. And I think it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Mr. Fralin, thank you for your passion, your interest in biomedical research, and for your philanthropy, and for having this chat with us today. We appreciate it.
I'm very happy to do it.
Dr. Friedlander.
Come up front, please. Not sure if you have assigned seats, but you can fight for seats. Be on the end. Okay. Turn the fire up. Do we have Dr. Newman on the line? We get him on the screen instead of the fire.
Yeah.
There you go. Good afternoon, Kurt.
Hey there, Mike.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Don and Heywood, for that fascinating conversation. So we're now going to move to a panel discussion. our panelists here have heard, obviously, the exciting information that Mary Woolley shared with us and the discussion with Heywood. And we're going to ask them a few questions to get the conversation going and leave some time, hopefully, towards the end for questions from the audience as well. So I just, first of all, want to, again, give a shout out to Heywood and thank him about his vision for the future and his eloquent voice as an ambassador for the biomedical and health science research enterprise that helps drive us forward. As you saw from Mary Woolley's presentation and heard from Heywood, there's never been a better time for research in Virginia driving progress and innovation than today. So today I have the honor of hosting a distinguished panel who will offer their perspectives, some of the most recent and innovative partnerships and programs taking place across Virginia and in the adjacent Washington, D.C. area as well. These programs drive new insights and myriad challenges facing our state and nation and offer us hope to families seeking answers and a better, healthier future for themselves and their children. Each of our panelists are really visionaries in their own right. They wear many hats, and it's a pleasure to provide very brief introductions now. So firstly, Sally Allain is here. She is the head of JLABS in Washington, D.C. John Newby is here. John is the CEO of Virginia Bio, who's been hosting their big meeting here. Just came from his board meeting minutes ago. And then joining us via video is Dr. Kurt Newman, President and CEO of Children's National Hospital. And then sitting next to Sally is Dr. Karen Johnston. Dr. Johnston is the Associate Vice President for Clinical and Translational Research at the University of Virginia, and a colleague and friend of mine working on a particular project. And then finally on the end here, my colleague, Dr. Dan Swee, who's the Senior Vice President for Research and Innovation at Virginia Tech. So thank you all for joining me. I really very much appreciate it. And Kurt, your head is about the same size as the panelists on the monitor, so it feels like you're in the room and you're not on fire. Okay. So let's start, if we could, with Kurt and Sally. So Children's National Hospital recently created the nation's first innovation campus focused on pediatric research, where JLABS and Virginia Tech also have joined as partners in that enterprise. I personally have been very enthusiastic and excited about how this vital partnership came together from the outset and how it can drive research innovations into practice to prevent, treat, and ultimately cure pediatric diseases, including brain cancers, which often have devastating impacts on the lives of so many children and families. So Kurt, starting with you, Children's National has been a national leader in the launch of this pediatric research and innovation campus. What makes this enterprise so novel and so innovative?
Thank you, Mike, and it's an honor to be part of this this panel and be with the audience. I'm sorry I'm not with you there in person. I'm particularly gratified to see my great friends and colleagues that I've worked with over the years. Dr. Sands, Nancy Agee, Mary Woolley. It's like just a hall of fame for leaders in research and medicine, and I'm proud to be part of that. To your question, Mike, we had this opportunity to think differently about how to do research and discovery in children. And Mary, thank you so much for your survey, which emphasizes the importance of pediatric research and to find and discover issues and cures in children and even before birth that can have impact not only on those children, but on adults. With this opportunity, when the United States Army was closing the Walter Reed Army Medical Center, we worked with Congress and the President of the United States to have the Army transfer some land and research buildings that have been on that campus to dedicate toward a pediatric research and innovation campus. From the beginning, we wanted to do this in a partnership model. We wanted to bring in best-in-class institutions, leaders, to do this in a complementary way. And Mr. Fralin said it so well, and there were so many themes he touched on, but the idea was not just to do pure research for research's sake, but to be able to commercialize it. And when you think about where we're situated with this campus, which is in the sweet spot between the NIH, the FDA, all the different universities, all the government agencies, it is, and then very close to our hospital, Children's National, it just made perfect sense. So then we went out to say, well, who do we want our partners to be? And I had this idea and vision that we wanted best in class. And as an academic partner, we'd already been working with you, Mike Friedlander, over the years. We knew you shared the culture and vision. When I met Dr. Sands, I could feel that same driving ambition to be the best. And not only with the medical school and the university there in Blacksburg and the hospitals and everything in Roanoke, but also this new billion-dollar campus that was being planned in Northern Virginia, which would also be very complementary, and the veterinary school. So there's so many pieces that came together to have Virginia Tech as our academic partner. And then best in class for an incubator, accelerator to help us commercialize these ideas, to take them from intellectual property into startup companies. And we had this massive research building with all sorts of different opportunities. And the brand and the results and the people and the culture came together as best in class with Johnson & Johnson, JLABS, and Sally Allain, who I know is a proud graduate of Virginia Tech. She and her team, we worked out a scenario where this accelerator would be side by side with Children's National Research, Virginia Tech Research. We were going to have a big focus on cancer and brain tumor research, and I believe we'll have the #1 brain tumor research enterprise in the country before long. So that was the idea. And then look for other and additional partners. And to be honest with you, it's working already beyond what I had envisioned at this point. And there's companies that are housed already in the Johnson & Johnson JLABS. The Children's National research is up and running with genetics and cancer research. And we've received an NIH construction grant to help us along. And again, back to Mr. Fralin's point, the philanthropic opportunities are exploding. And Mike, you and I and Dr. Sand, and along with Howard University, for example, we never would have been able to put together an over $200 million application. Now, we haven't gotten this thing yet, but we could come together quickly because of our synergies to apply for something like that. And I can tell you there's some major philanthropic gifts for Children's National in the pipeline because of our approach, because of this partnership, because of really trying to do the best thing, in our case, for children and families. That's the theme. It's not about, there's not this possessive or competitive side of it. It's how can we do the best science and how can we turn it into things that are going to help children and families on into the future. So thank you again for the opportunity to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you very much, Kurt. And just as a very brief follow-on to a couple of points you made regarding things like hiring people together, collaborations on projects, even IP together. Can you just comment if this collaboration, if you think it's unique to this area, or can this serve as a model for other research hospitals and universities, for example?
Yeah, you know, I don't know whether it's unique or not, and I'd leave that for others to judge, but I do think it can serve as a model. But the bar is high because you have to have like-minded people that share a vision and can see the greater good of working together as opposed to working independently. But I think there's a lot there, and I know you know, you'll be some of the other speakers will be talking about the CTSA that you all are a part of. Those are the kinds of things And Mr. Fralin again commented on what the NIH likes to see. And it's not just the NIH. All of the funders we work with love seeing organizations come together. But you've got to find that theme. And for us, that theme that drives it is children and the things that happen to them and the research that we can do to solve for that. So, but I think with thought and bringing the right partners together, it can and probably should serve as a model for others.
Great. Thank you very much, Kurt. Sally, following on, what made Children's National Research and Innovation Campus an ideal choice for a partnership with JLABS?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I should first start by saying Johnson & Johnson has been a long-term partner with Children's National, and we launched Safe Kids Worldwide many years ago. But when Johnson & Johnson Innovation looked at this opportunity, we certainly saw we could complement Children's National's initiatives and really bring a light to a big need, which is more focused research on pediatrics. It's well known that science and technology doesn't necessarily start with pediatrics first. You can't take medical devices for adults and miniaturize them. So how could we anchor with Children's National? How can we support companies and incubate companies, not only in the pediatric space, but in any other areas of life science and healthcare? And create and add to the ecosystem. I think Kurt also highlighted the fact that it's a thriving innovation ecosystem where we're located, down the street from the NIH, the FDA, and to being able to catch companies, support entrepreneurs, early stage companies with turnkey facilities so that they can incubate, how we can bring our mentorship from Johnson & Johnson, how we can bring big company benefits to entrepreneurs and early stage companies so that their science and technology can accelerate faster. That's why we're there and what we want to do. And, we opened last year. I'm excited to say we have 25 companies already signed and incubating with us from many parts of the area, not just the Northern Virginia area. We have companies moving in from other states to take advantage of the innovation campus as well as the surrounding ecosystem. And as we start incubating these companies, if they're not necessarily spin-outs from Children's National or starting with pediatrics in mind, we have the opportunity to put in place for the translation to start working with experts at Children's National as well, and thinking about the opportunity, how that they can take their science or technology and support additional pediatric opportunities. So there's a lot there for us. We're excited to support companies, to put partnering deals in place with our companies. Just to give you a broad spectrum, there's over 800 companies in JLABS portfolio. 95% of those companies that start with us are still viable. They've done over $50 billion worth of capital raise, over 40 of IPOs. But most importantly, Johnson & Johnson has put in partnership deals with 200 companies. So not only are we thinking about incubating companies, we're thinking about putting partnership opportunities in place, and then also making equity investments as well. So we're excited to be a part of the ecosystem.
Thank you, Sally. And perhaps you could send that a little bit and comment from your perspective. What makes Virginia Tech a particularly good partner for this enterprise?
Yeah, so last year, I think, we were excited to come down to FDRI to see the ecosystem down here. And when you look at what's thriving here, not only the research, but you've got the right players around the table to make the research, spin-outs, and companies successful. You've got early stage mentorship through accelerators. You've got those in the economic development organizations here supporting companies. We uniquely signed a partnership to leverage Go Virginia funding to sponsor companies that reside down here to access and leverage what JLABS can bring to the table. So how can we support and mentor companies that are thriving here? And you've got investment, you've got non-diluted capital investment into early stage companies, and you've got VCs at the table supporting companies here. But I do think certainly what Heywood recognized, there needs to be more, certainly from with angel funding investment. So we see this as an ecosystem that's thriving. We see incredible science, research, and technology, and we want to be a big supporter to see how we can accelerate that.
Great. Thank you very much, Sally. John, turn to you, Mike. As the leader of Virginia Bio, you have a true 360-degree grasp of Virginia's life science sector. So as we heard from Mary Woolley earlier, when some people think of health and biomedical research, they may not first think of Virginia. At the same time, the survey respondents said they want Virginia to be a leader. However, Virginia is already a leader, and it's vital to highlight this. So according to your site, Virginia has over 1,400 life sciences companies, which contribute more than $8 billion to Virginia's economy and employs nearly 27,000 people. So tell us a bit more. How does the life sciences industry impact Virginia?
Sure, just for a little bit more color on that, I'd like to actually go right back to Mary's excellent survey. And that one question that hopefully may have caught some folks' eye, which was, do you realize that there is fairly funded life science research being done in Virginia? 50% folks had no idea. That research has a direct impact on Virginia and Virginians. You start with NIH, $493 million in fiscal year 20. $453 million of NIH money came to Virginia. That puts us in the top 30% in the nation of states receiving NIH funding. That funding specifically led to 7,500 jobs and $1.4 billion economic impact on Virginia, right? Those are jobs. That's the impact that's had by that money. Other federal money coming to Virginia, not just research, but into operationalizing some of the great things that our companies are doing. Just in the past 2 years, that beautiful, great, huge $800 million grant from BARDA, potentially up to $800 million to flow down in Petersburg to bring domestic production of APIs for essential medicines to the United, not to Virginia, to the United States, making Virginia the national leader for that kind of activity. That's the impact of that federal money that no one knows about when it comes to money coming to life sciences from the federal government. And finally, directly for our citizens, we mentioned clinical trials several times, and we all know this. That money coming to research and clinical trials can directly affect an individual's life who's trying to find some kind of cutting edge solution to their problem. And oftentimes the only way they can get that solution is through a clinical trial. Through the money coming to Virginia, through the research that you do, and through our companies who are working to solve these issues. So lots of ways that our life science industry is positively affected by not just the federal money, but hopefully more attention to what we're doing to realize that we are not just leaders nationally, but we could be leaders in the world in a lot of aspects. Advanced pharmaceutical manufacturing, other things as well. Neuroscience and brain. We've got the tools here to be leaders already.
So clearly, John, there's a lot of great stuff going on in the state, and it's not all known about. So where do you see room to do more? And if so, what and where specifically? And how do we get the word out to people?
Well, two things. One is getting the word out, letting the world know. That's what hopefully we all are here to do as individuals, as our respective entities. Virginia Bio, that's our mission. Not just to let the world know, but let Virginians know what we have and how we can support it. But the one thing that I think Virginia stands right at the precipice of doing something great is in the area of providing more infrastructure to not just service our own needs, but to offer ourselves to others to come to Virginia to join us, which is lab space, right? We have some great resources already. Our biotech park at VCU, the great 30,000 square feet that just opened up to add to the space in Prince William County. Going back to VCU, I know there are plans afoot, and I see my friend Shonda Brigman here from Activation Capital, plans afoot to bring 100,000, potentially 100,000 square foot more lab space. We have 6,000 square feet of lab space that just opened up in Virginia Beach earlier. But just next door in Maryland, there's a 2% lab availability rate, which said differently, 90%, 98% of the lab space is taken. That's an opportunity for Virginia, right? We have the same geographic proximity to all the right federal agencies, all the federal resources, all the partnerships, all the great universities, and all the talent. we can attract a lot of companies. This is a business development point for Virginia. But by only investing a modest amount of money into our lab space and infrastructure to attract more business. And indeed, just to help the companies that are already here, our own companies that are currently going to other states for lab services and for clinical trials. We need to reverse that.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Sean. Karen, you're up. So Karen, the Integrated Translational Health Research Institute of Virginia, iThrive, which of course has its hub at UVA and also includes Virginia Tech, Carilion Clinic, and Inova Health, has been awarded a 5-year Clinical and Translational Science Award, CTSA, that you've heard people refer to a few times, valued at nearly $23 million from the NIH to advance innovative ideas from the point of discovery to implementation and clinical practice to population health. So please share with us what makes this CTSA so meaningful to Virginia and our communities. And what about the community engagement? If people want to get involved, can they still do that?
Yeah, so thank you, Mike, for the question. Our CTSA, iThrive, is incredibly collaborative, as Mike knows, and it does include 4 different systems across the state. But in addition to that, we're not the only CTSA in the state. Children's National has one, we partner with them. VCU has one, we partner with them. And in addition, we're partnering with other folks across the state, George Mason, Centera. We're partnering at a time when this whole concept of partnership and collaboration, we all recognize is the key. And it sets us up in the state of Virginia to leverage those relationships to get the very best out of all of us across the state. And that's what I think, that culture change, as you know, Mike, that culture change of collaborative work is the thing that I think makes iThrive special, because we're part of a bigger ecosystem of collaboration. The other thing, the community piece, Mary raises the issue from the data, but the community's ready. They want this. They've told us they support research. We also saw during COVID that there was a dramatic increase in the engagement in clinical trials during the COVID pandemic. People wanted to be part of the solution. They wanted to engage in clinical trials. So the time feels right now for the Commonwealth of Virginia, the infrastructure to leverage across the whole state for biomedical research and a community who is ready to participate. It just feels like a really special time.
So if I may follow up just on one part you mentioned, you talked about industry, and we heard, of course, from John and others. So with respect to the CTSAs, would you like to comment on either what is going on or what opportunities there may exist? There are a lot of people in this room that come from the biotechnology and business sector for interacting with the academic, clinical, and translational enterprises like CTSAs.
Yeah, so from a community standpoint, the community partnerships, community organizations, we're really interested in engaging with those, and folks can reach out to us, reach out to Mike, reach out to me. The industry partners, we're very interested in industry partners as well. We have, as Mike knows, we have an I-Core system in our CTSA, so we're trying to grow and develop teams of folks that can do early commercialization, things like that. And one of the other things that we've really been thinking about, which relates to a lot of what was said, and Mary really triggered me when she shared the data that 50% of people in the Commonwealth don't know that we have any federally funded research going on. That is striking to me. And one of our charges is to disseminate, right? We have to get out there more and communicate with people in the Commonwealth that this is the work we're doing, and pull them in and engage them. So we still have plenty of work to do, but I'm a firm believer that we can do it together better than we can do it separately.
Great, thank you, Karen. And that wasn't in the script. I threw a curveball on that question. All right, let me go on to Dan. Dan, let's sort of wrap up the opening comments here by looking forward, if we might. So without putting you on the spot, what are a few other partnership and research areas you would like to highlight specifically?
First of all, thank you, Mike, for organizing this, and thank you, Mary, for partnering with Virginia Tech for this survey. So I think partnership as a public grant institution, partnerships have been lifeblood for Virginia Tech. I'm very pleased to see that all the major partners with Virginia Tech, especially for biomedical health related researchers are here. So Nancy, we have enjoyed the partnership with the Carilion Clinic. We are still in the process of developing and expanding our partnership with Children's National Hospital. We have multiple industry partnerships in the biotech industry, and most recently, JLAB is finding its new home in CRC. Karen, I know UVA and the VT compete fiercely in the football field and the basketball court, but as far as research is concerned, UVA colleagues have been a great partners. The most recent one, both Karen and I are on the board for the I-Thrive. That has been a very fruitful partnership. So as most of you, some of you might know, 2022 is Virginia Tech's 60th anniversary. So we have made great strides during the past 150 years. I must say that during the past 8 years in particular, under President Sen's strong leadership and his vision, we are pushing beyond the boundaries along multiple fronts. Most recently, my colleagues and I at Virginia Tech have identified 4 research frontiers that we are moving forward full speed. And these 4 research frontiers are artificial intelligence. We are aiming to harness AI for intelligence augmentation. So the short acronym is AI for IA. If you are interested in what that means, we can chat during the reception. So that's the first frontier area, AI. And the second area of research frontier is related to security. So we are aiming to, through all the multiple innovations to develop a more secure and innovative community to address all these global challenges ranging from public health to cybersecurity to global climate change. And the third frontier area is related to quantum computing. We are trying to be part of this quantum leap. If you ask me, what would be one technology that would be disruptive, change everything in a fundamental way in the next 5 to 10 years, I would bet on quantum computing. So if you haven't paid attention to quantum frontier, by all means, check it out. There are all different kinds of exciting things related to quantum computing and the quantum leap. Last but not least is the health frontier. So we have updates on our website for all the exciting things related to the quantum frontier. I would encourage you to check it out if you are interested in learning what's happening in the full frontier area.
Great, thank you, Dan. So just to follow on a little bit, we heard earlier from President Sands about, of course, what most people I know through Virginia Tech, the strength of its history and engineering, of course, and you laid out very articulately the 4 major focus areas going forward. So when you mentioned the last one there, the sort of health sciences frontier, can you say just a little bit more about how important that enterprise is going to be to Virginia Tech's strategic plan going forward? It is really a shift from the traditional. Many of the other areas you mentioned really do tie nicely to engineering and continue to highlight that strength. How important is it for the overall plan?
I would say very important. It's a bit of disheartening to sit in the audience to listen to Mary's survey results that only 60% of the people surveyed can identify Virginia Tech, as a institution doing biomedical health research. For this audience, I guarantee you, if you ask them what they would identify Virginia Tech in terms of research area, I guarantee you 90, close to 100% would identify us for engineering and agricultural research related activities. So that's what we have been known for during the past 150 years. But moving forward, I would say biomedical health and biomedical research will be front and center for our health frontier. And Mike, I want to thank you for your leadership for all the exciting things happening in this building at FDRI. Heywood, thank you for your generosity that made all this happen, that put Virginia Tech on the national map for biomedical research. So moving forward for the health frontier, our Virginia Tech's approach is to lead One Health to achieve whole health. So One Health, it means that we are integrating the environmental health, animal health, and the human health. That's the concept of One Health. I'm very pleased to see that 75% of the Virginians surveyed are identifying the importance of veterinary medicine in terms of their importance to human health research. But we, leading One Health, we want to have a human landing. That is the concept of whole health. The concept of whole health is revolving around the core concept to move beyond the traditional biomedical health research to incorporate not just the biomedical aspect of the human health, but also incorporating mental health and even spiritual health. Because we as a species are purpose-seeking species, so for our existence. So I hope that survey results really resonates with this audience. Put the cost of healthcare aside, mental health, the opioid crisis are really the major concern, and followed by the traditional biomedical research related to cancer, cardiovascular, and I don't see the infectious disease even mentioned there. So moving forward, I think that focusing on One Health towards whole health, that will give Virginia Tech's biomedical and health research a new identity. I think all the exciting research happening in this complex on this campus here, to a large extent, embody that kind of approach we are taking. Thank you,
Great.
Michael, for your leadership.
Thank you, Dan. I think actually in the slides, the question, Mary can speak to this. They said other than COVID-19, so I didn't say infectious disease writ large. And my guess is the pollsters felt that would really dominate the response to that question right now at this time. But of course, you're right, infectious disease would be important. Dan, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm supposed to ask you what excites you most. In case you haven't noticed, Dan gets pretty excited anyway. So tell us what you really think, Dan. Next question is, what excites you most about Virginia Tech research?
Oh gosh, do you really want me to get started on that one? Okay,
Briefly.
So I'm excited, lots of things, but I think the things that really, truly, as the chief research officer for this great university, I think I'm very excited by the ongoing research by the various research teams on our campus, ranging from Blacksburg to Roanoke to Northern Virginia, and also through the multiple locations throughout the Commonwealth, to address any of the challenging issues that, as we identified in the 4 research frontiers. I don't think any particular discipline can claim ownership. It takes, you have to really, move out of your comfort zone. So using the trendy buzzword that, you have to take a transdisciplinary approach. That's really excites me. I know some of the faculties are here. I saw Debbie Yoi here. Her group is, she's a leading AI and cybersecurity researcher, but most recently, she has moved to digital health. She and her group using the latest AI and machine learning technique, the group developed using the big data, health and patient data with a much very detailed granularity. They uncovered some of the health disparity issues that will not be able to we identify, through the traditional methodology techniques. That's just one among the many examples that really excite me. And second area really excites me, I want to put it on the radar of this audience, is again, I was inspired by Heywood's let's follow the money, be serious. So federal government is making a new investment in health and biomedical research with the establishment of ARPA-H. the initial funding is a 6.5 billion. So that's another entire new National Science Foundation. And also, if you look at the philanthropy world, that's annually, that's 750 billion a year. So a big chunk of it is spent on health and the biomedical research. But we cannot, especially for our part of funding, I don't think academic, based on, it's still at the early stage, I don't think academic institutions can succeed by ourselves. So we moving forward, we must not only strengthen, but expand all the partners that we have represented in this room. It doesn't matter, academic partners, industry partners, or philanthropy, you name it. I think that by joining forces together, we can truly change the world to make this world a better place.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much. So what I'd like to do now, and it's really a follow-on to a couple of things, to open up to all the panelists, and I just want to sort of see a little bit of a discussion with something we were just hearing you talk about and came up earlier. Again, we heard a lot about partnerships, academic partnerships, industry, academic, hospitals and universities. And we all know there's a good, healthy competition that goes on within our ecosystems. We all know we benefit when we partner. But it seems to me, I'm going to emphasize a point I made earlier, that the academic to industry bridge is the hardest one to really make work. And when we're talking about the biomedical and health science world, it seems to me that's extremely important in technology development, et cetera. So again, based on the audience we have today, what do you all think? Any one of you like to comment on what we can do in this state? It seems to me we are positioned to do more with that. We have a lot of willing leaders in these organizations. We have organizations in the state like the Catalyst, for example, that gives funding to industries and universities doing things together. Virginia Bio is a great facilitator. How do we actually in the health science space bring ourselves together to do more of this? Any ideas for what we can do now? Go ahead, John.
Sure, you mentioned Catalyst. So back to Heywood's statement about money is key. Fund Catalyst even more. We have lots of Catalyst successes right here in this room. Many members of my board and their companies took advantage of that and it's really succeeded based on that support and that unity that was essentially forced by that money, forcing the private industry and research institutions to work together. We, Virginia Bio, could do more, particularly in hosting and supporting what I call reverse pitches. We do that in association on a regional basis, where you have companies come in and present to universities, to find universities who are willing to partner with them. Because oftentimes it's sometimes too often it's the other way around. We need to balance that out. Let the companies see the universities, and universities also see the companies in different fora and ways to bring partnerships there. So that's probably the one area I think Virginia Bio could probably step up and help in that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Karen.
I'll add to that. I think John is absolutely on to the right concept. Feeding that collaborative effort, so things like the Catalyst and the SBIR program at the NIH and bringing those folks together. And I totally agree with Dan that the concept of ARPA-H is going to require us to change our model and move swiftly and leverage the strength and experience, which is different in industry than it is in academia. And we have to come together to do that. But if we are going to be successful in the ARPA model, we are all going to have to come together and bring our best to the table to get those grants.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. The ARPA-H model is going to require something very different.
Yeah.
So Mike, so one thing I think the research universities need to make some major cultural changes if we're really serious about university industry partnership. So while I was at NSF, I partnered with multiple other programs that we funded this ongoing project called the Promotion Tenure for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, PATI Coalition. So that project is funded by National Science Foundation, basically to examine through the university campuses, especially major research universities, how do we change the existing tenure and the promotion process so that faculty research active faculties are recognized and rewarded for their entrepreneurship and innovative activities. Because right now, most of the department heads and the deans, nationally speaking, I'm not talking about any particular schools, they don't, yeah, if an article published in JAMA or Nature or Science, yeah, they know how to evaluate it. But in terms of all these innovation and the commercialization activities, they are also very important, in my opinion, but they are not incentivized, much less how should we reward and recognize those activities. And that coalition will have its annual first annual meeting in July to have a national conversation. So they already made a series of recommendations. It will take some time to have that cultural change, but at least we have started this national conversation.
Yeah, that's good. Kurt, I want to make sure, did you have your hand up, Kurt? I think maybe you were trying to say something, I'm not sure.
Yes, Mike, I was trying to use these technology tools that I'm learning. I think it's a very important question, and Daniel and Karen made some great comments. One of the things that I've learned in trying to understand what the natural resources and the infrastructure that's required for success, and we went around and studied areas. Whether it was Cortex out in St. Louis, or whether it was up in Boston and Cambridge, or out in California, and I'd say that Johnson and Johnson JLABS innovation was very helpful in this. It was really about creating an ecosystem that individual organizations I thought about it, that I used to think about it this way as at Children's National, that we could do a lot of things on our own, and we could spin off companies, and we'd spun off 20 companies, but there wasn't that, you didn't have that vibrancy, and you didn't feel that sustainability. And in creating this campus, we wanted to understand what made these innovation districts or hubs or whatever really successful, because there's a lot of them that just never get off the ground and never really are sustainable. And that's where this, I think location and co-location are important, and having open partnerships that are close together, not separate buildings that where people don't talk to each other. But when you come to visit Sally and JLABS, you'll see something they call the Collaboratorium, which is a place where everybody on that campus can come and exchange ideas, bump into each other. And that's really where science at its best works, and looking for others to build that ecosystem. And I would say another thing is that we're not, with what we've been trying to design, is also to be open and be part of the community. And it's been mentioned a couple of times. One of the great things about being in a city like Washington, D.C. is the opportunity to have diversity in the populations we study, or the questions we're asking. Also to promote that and the people we're educating, so that we have a pipeline of young people. And we're kind of blessed to have that being in Washington. One of the attractive things about Virginia Tech was there was a different type of diversity around geography. And so that's starting to play out when we look at our clinical trials. Maybe Sally will talk about a company that came to the JLABS precisely because the focus of this company is to enhance the representation of minorities in clinical trials. They couldn't do that anywhere else. So that's how I'm thinking about it, is trying to create that the geography, the infrastructure. And then the other thing is, and I think John and Jeff Gallagher and everybody, they helped us understand the economic impact so that we could go to the political folks and look at policies that support investment in that kind of an ecosystem because of the job creation, the taxes and so forth. And then it becomes a real self-fulfilling prophecy. So I'll stop there, but I think it's a great question.
Thank you, Kirk. So I wanted to make sure to save a little bit of time to allow the audience to ask questions of our panelists. So if you have a question, just wave and okay, that looks like Mike Grisham up there. Hey, Mike, stand up and boom for us, please. Just before, I'm sorry, just before, because for the people online, I want to just quickly encapsulate
Yep.
Mike's question so they hear, and I'm going to have to really condense it. I think Mike Grisham, who's CEO of the Catalyst, was basically stating the proposition that there's an opaqueness to university structure, to people working in the outside in business and industry, investors, and looking at different universities. And they want very much to partner, but they find it challenging to know how to get in, where to get in, make the connections, and what can we do to facilitate that, more or less? Okay, Karen and okay.
So Mike, I appreciate the question, appreciate your leadership in the Catalyst. I think that, again, the model of the Catalyst is a model that we need to grow. I will give you my perspective on both kind of current state and on future state. I'll start with future state and say that I love the idea of the collaboratory because that, again, a mechanism, an open mechanism to bring people together to start to cross-fertilize is something we need to build so that we're bringing industry and academia together in the same environment to have conversations to identify the synergies, right? I will say that I don't believe we have enough of those right now. So in current state, the beauty of a program like a Clinical Translational Research Institute, like iThrive or like Children's National or like the VCU Wright program, is that our responsibility as the leaders of those programs is to know across the collaboration, across the entire institution, across multiple institutions, where to find the point people. We're like a hub and spoke system, really. And so having a point person at the lead of a Clinical Translational Research Institute is a beautiful place to start because our responsibility is not for a small team. It's not just for engineering. It's not just for neuroscience. It's across everybody who's doing research. The VPRs, the Vice President of Research, is another person who is a point person who is responsible for across an entire institution. So I agree with you. It's not a perfect system right now, but that's what I would tell your colleagues for today. And then I would invite you to work with us to create some kind of community collaboratory where we could bring these folks together and start synergizing.
So I think Virginia Tech, Mike, thank you for the question. I want to let you know that we have the research, we have the infrastructure to help you doing the matchmaking. So we have an operation is one of those units that has joined reporting to me and to VP for advancement. That's the link license launch. So if we are interested, if in case you don't know Brandy Solomon, I would be more than happy to connect you to so that you can start the conversation there. So under her, there is this team called Link. Their sole job is to build connections between our faculty and our potential industry partners. They have figured out really a playbook related to IP, industry consortium. It's really depending on your needs and which stage you are for your various R&D efforts. We have different kinds of resources and approaches available. So, Link Lessons Launch is the office that help build connections between Virginia Tech faculty and industry. My understanding is a Link Brandy's team also has some full-time employees just specifically dedicated for biomedical and health, based here and also in Northern Virginia.
Yeah, and I might just mention to Karen's point, Mike, as Karen knows well, has developed it. The iThrive has a portal system that allows all the researchers access all kinds of resources to find out where to contact people, get things done. But that's more internally facing for us. There could be some exciting ideas to open up something targeted more towards our potential collaborators in industry, for example, maybe something we could talk about more. Sally, did you want to?
Yeah, if I could add to just thinking about where we're located, our companies that are incubating with us or virtually down here, and also Carol mentioned, can tap into the core capabilities at Children's National, right? So hundreds of PIs work at the research institutes at Children's National. That's a core capabilities that companies can tap into. We can make connections as well to companies within Johnson & Johnson for expertise and mentorship. So I think as we think about what we're all working to do here across the ecosystem, if there's a Virginia company that needs that expertise, I would say reach out and see how we can help. Whether it's a company incubating with us in Washington, D.C., or part of our portfolio or not portfolio, how we can make those connections. We're working quite closely together to build more.
Yeah, I saw we have Brett Malone here, the president and CEO of Virginia Corporate Research Center. So that's another very important person to talk to if you are interested in building like a partnership with Virginia Tech.
So, all right, maybe one more question. Yeah, please stand up and boom.
Hi, Andy. Hi.
A lot of small companies don't have the resources to pay 57 or 62% COVID. So I award Mike for cutting that down to 30%, which we can figure out. If there's a way if companies spun out of Virginia Tech or UVA and there was a pre-negotiated discounted price, that would be a great thing. The overhead costs kill our little companies, and I know there's better regulation. So that the second thing is, you guys are great front people. Karen, you got Zeal Bio. I could never get clinical trial at UVA. You did it. Zeal is doing it. So thank you. The sponsored research offices have got to be looked at. Somebody in your position needs to talk sponsored research because it's very difficult to get any paperwork done. So I can get the academic, the faculty numbers to you. This is awesome, but then I can't get the contract through. So that's the other big part of the reason why I think a lot of companies have small companies have difficulty working with. And I'm a former, UVA person, so I want to do the work.
So perhaps we're getting very close to the end, and I think there's a rich discussion here over a drink would be a good idea. But let me just, for the people online, say that Andy Krauss summarized the quintessential story of indirect costs and overhead for companies outside of universities and how to negotiate a favorable rate so they can do their work, and also working with offices of sponsored programs and getting things done better. But as I said, we're at the end of our time. Okay, Dan, I know you're just dying to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, regarding overhead, since I came on board, I have met with multiple stakeholders. Virginia Tech's approach moving forward is we want to be agile, as flexible as we can, so that we can accommodate working with more industry partners.
So Andy, I will share my thoughts, and I'm not the boss like he is, so I can just tell you my thoughts. But this is a systems issue, right? And we know that clinical translational research has numerous barriers that are systems issues. We've struggled with IRBs for decades. COVID hit and we figured out a new way to manage the IRB consents, things like that. So we are learning, but these types of systems issues are exactly the types of things that we in the CTSA programs want to tackle. So again, I would invite you to work with me to think about a new approach to that. And we can build it into a pilot trial or something and get leadership across, you know, the state to see if we can get people to buy into a new approach to make us all better. I love that idea.
So I want to make sure to give time. Kurt, I know it's always challenging when you're the only person not physically in the room. And I want to give you a chance if you'd like to put any closing thoughts on this last question or any subjects for that matter.
Mike, thank you. And I was just about headed out to get my glass of wine, but I wish I were there sharing that with you all. I really want to take my hat off to you for being the convener here and bringing such a great program together. It gives me a terrific sense of optimism looking at what the data that Mary presented, and then just all of the presentations and the leaders here in this room. I'm convinced that there's so much progress to be made, and we have all the tools to do that together. So I look forward to working with all of you to deliver on these big visions and audacious goals. And I hope you all will come visit me and Sally and Mike at our new research and innovation campus, and find ways to collaborate there, and then find ways to work with you and your own organizations and institutions. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Kurt. So let me just say in closing, we've certainly learned a lot today from the results of the Research America survey and a group of visionary leaders, each with a unique perspective, important sphere of influence. I can't think of a better group of experts from whom to hear on this important subject of medical research enterprise. It will indeed be of great interest as we go forward to see how we address the challenges identified by the citizens of Virginia for the future of health and healthcare, and how we continue to develop a thriving medical research ecosystem that we heard about several times that can be a national leader through enhanced and innovative partnerships between academia, healthcare, the biotechnology industry, and the business community in our state and region. I personally see a very bright future. So please join me again in thanking all of today's contributors, including the panelists, Research America, all of the speakers, respondents, and panelists for a great session today. So we've heard something about wine several times now, so please join me as we take the elevators or stairs down to the first floor. We cross over the bridge into the newest Fralin Biomedical Research Institute edition for some shared grub, grog, and informal conversation. Thank you all.